Where do I start? They say life imitates art. I'm trying to paint a picture. Paint a picture that's licking you scripture. I ain't just another nigga. Another nigga with a dream. It seems we finally made him all believe. A dream to be the reason we come to achieve. The life that we would all kill for, even die for. I score, so sick, so sick.
Ooh.
Sick and tired.
It's working. Hey, got the A. Just lead A. Y'all ready?
We're ready.
Y'all ready? Dwayne. All it took was Dwayne coming over and standing over my shoulder.
It's that dadness. It's the quit friggin' around dadness.
The computer got scared.
You just look at the kids and you just be like, yo. You gotta say nothing.
That's sad.
Say nothing.
Dad's here. Dad's here. Okay. Are we ready now?
I think I'm ready.
You ready? Lo.
Of course I am.
Are you sure?
Always. I'm just reposting our short video, our shorter version, so I'm reposting.
Oh, so you're doing your social media.
I'm trying to do the thing because you guys know that I am not good at the social medias.
She don't do the social media.
Yeah, same. That might be my New Year's resolution, actually.
Social media?
Yeah, like have some, like even just a little presence.
Have a presence?
Yeah.
Well, at least you have an Instagram account, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the first step.
I got it because of work for Social Shift. I didn't have one until then, so
that's right.
Now I don't really use it at all.
That's
but
right.
2019 gonna be a new year.
Hey. Do you need to move that closer to you a little bit?
Me? Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, I just can't hear, so.
Okay.
Oh no, but
and
Joe,
I'm gonna be slipping out here after.
Yeah, no. Well, Joe gotta bless the mic before we even get into any of this business that we're about to get into. So, for those of you who do not know, I don't need to introduce this man. He needs no introduction. No, he really doesn't. This is a kind gentleman, friend of mine, a coworker of mine, a very good human. His name is Joseph Heyer. I said it right this time, Lauren?
Yeah.
Joseph Heyer.
Bravo.
Member of the Social Shift documentary that was a part of a Common Good Solutions masterpiece. And
first of many.
Hey.
Amen to that.
You said it. So Joseph is here. Before we even get to the shits, we need our microphones blessed the way you bless the food before you eat it. So, Joseph.
Thank you. And I'd also like to thank everybody else here that's in the room this evening. It's really great to be able to have something like this go on in our office. I was sitting over in this corner working all day until we moved a bunch of tables around and got chairs out and are doing this. So I'd like to thank you for being here. And as a new piece of reconciliation that many folks are doing across the country is a quick land acknowledgement before we get carried on here. So here we are gathered in Halifax or Shabuktuk, and this is the unceded and unsurrendered traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And so that means, unceded means that that no land or resources have been agreed upon for a transfer. So they didn't cede those things. They didn't hand those over. They were just, the treaties that were here are from 1725 to 1769. Those were the peace and friendship treaties, and those were to acknowledge and understand indigenous title and the sharing of lands and resources, as well as moving forward as a relationship between nation to nation. So here we are on unceded Mi'kmaq territory, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you, and I look forward to listening to the rest of the content this evening.
My man.
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Sayonara. In the meantime,
can I add one piece to that?
Please.
I just wanted to acknowledge that we're also in a community where there have been African Nova Scotian roots for over 400 years. Mm-hmm. So we're in the heart of the North End of Halifax, and I know Joe knows that too. So it's awesome. But there's more than one Indigenous group here. So, and how fitting for our topic tonight.
You said it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You said it. So before we get started, I would like to welcome, I can see everyone. Oh, there's Pyre. They're my favorite. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Changing the Narrative podcast, in which we provide transparent and unfiltered discussions around navigating life as aspiring entrepreneurs from the voices of men, women, and humans of color living in Atlantic Canada. Isn't that cool?
It's pretty cool.
Amazing.
I mean, we think it's cool.
I mean, that's us tooting our own horn, though. But that's
why we're here. It's our purpose.
Ain't that what you're supposed to do? So yeah, we talk pop culture, race, business development, politics, gender equality among youth leaders of the artistic and entrepreneurship community. I want to thank everybody who is listening to this through their ears on Apple Podcasts or any other Apple devices, as well as Spotify, or those who are watching on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. Hey,
Missed your face.
hey, you see the hand speed though?
I was just going to say, listen,
Hand
Reflexes.
speed.
there are certain things that athletes never lose.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, athlete, yeah.
Yeah. Listen, that's expensive equipment.
You ain't tell me that. I knows all about it. What was I just saying? Oh, all the people in the places that they watch?
Yeah.
Is that what I said?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you
That's
said
what I said?
Spotify, and then we're good to go.
Then I said Spotify, then I said YouTube, then I said Facebook, and then I said Instagram, because we did Instagram TV, because we did a little snippet of our last week's episode, because Lauren thinks it's important for people to get little condensed versions of the show, instead of it being an hour and a half, 2 hours long, and get 27 minutes, 10 minutes, get the little bit of
Yeah,
the,
because
little
they're
tidbits.
for the people that are on the go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So make sure you follow us there. I don't have to say much more else about that. My name is Terrence Taylor. I don't want to introduce anybody else on this panel. I would like for all the beautiful people on this panel to introduce themselves. I'm going to start.
My name is Marika Paris. I cut you off, Terrence.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
No.
And I am an events coordinator. I work at the North End Business Association.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
No one needs to know who I know. My name is Lauren Sears, and I'm, with these people. With these people.
Love it.
It's simple.
My name is Cavell, Holland. I'm the programming and communications coordinator at Youth Art Connection. I'm also a hip hop dancer and an actor as well.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
And don't forget model.
Yeah, sometimes. I wear a few hats.
Most of the time, I feel.
So a little bit inside info. He was one of my very first runway show.
Yeah.
Really?
Actually, that was my first show as well. So.
Okay.
Beautiful. What's your name, Big Daddy?
Dwayne, I have a clothing brand called Art Pays Me. I do information management at Dalhousie University, and I'm cranky sometimes. Probably a lot.
I thought he was saying I'm cranky right now.
I'm kind of cranky right now.
Get ready
Start
for
the
it.
show.
Nah, well, listen, that's why we love the dynamic of this, because we just keep it real. So, for those of you who have never spoken, have you been on a podcast before?
No, it's
No,
my first
sir,
time.
no.
Okay, so first time on a podcast, first time on Change the Narrative podcast, which is a little different than your average podcast. So, just be yourself. Say how you feel. If we need to edit it after, we will.
Okay.
But we really try not to do that. So just be you.
Okay.
And share your truth. And thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you to everybody who's also in the space of the beautiful Common Good Solutions. We got a little studio audience here today.
Yeah, in our festive space.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy. So thank you everybody who's also here in the building. Do we need to shout out anybody? I think we should probably start with that.
Yeah, we got a couple that I can remember.
Do it.
My man Saj. Randomly, I didn't know he actually listened to the show, and he just hit me up, and I saw him at a ball game on the weekend for the kids.
Nice.
He said
Nice.
he likes what we're doing.
Good.
And Louise Spiteri, who was actually one of my profs in the information management program.
Ooh.
She listens.
Ooh.
And she said she likes what we're doing. So
Cool.
Okay.
completely random that one too.
Much love.
So
Good.
yeah.
Cavell, you got anybody you want to send some love to?
I don't know. It's a tough one. I guess shout out to Youth Art Connection and my dance company, Small Fortune.
Beautiful. Yeah, you beat me to the Youth Art Connection one, but that's okay. Lo, you got anybody you want to send
Thank you.
some much love to? Hey, I'm saying much love to little baby Sears back there.
Yeah,
Oh, my
Always.
sister.
Baby Sears always gets love when she comes. Through.
Yes.
Always.
Love to Bradley, my other business partner back there.
B-Day.
And I want to give a shout out to all my purpose-led business school cohort colleagues, Shelly, April, Cindy, Larissa, and Steph, and our business coach, Dorothy. And just because they're amazing. So we've been like doing little check-ins every week. We did some training together on how to scale our businesses, and they're just an amazing wealth of information and all amazing female powerhouses, and I love that shit.
Dope.
So
Yeah.
shout out to those women.
Good.
Because they also listen to this podcast.
Yes. Duh. Of course they do.
I want to give a shout out to my girl who was here earlier. She can't make it. She listens to your podcast all the time and is nonstop about how much she loves it.
Yay.
So, shout out
awesome.
Chelsea Wiggins.
Chelsea Wiggins.
Hi,
Chelsea Wiggins. She loves it. So
Yes. Thank you,
shout her out.
Chelsea.
And shout out to my Viola Desmond planning committee.
Yes.
Faces.
Yes.
You guys were amazing, and it was the most support that I could have ever had through such a big event. So thank you.
You mind if I hop in
Nibby
here real quick?
back there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I was just
Kayla,
going to say,
Gordon.
love to Nibby over there for putting all this on.
Yeah.
Y'all gotta stop
Yeah.
stealing my shout out. Jeez, I can't even get them up. Oh, I got one. Shouts to Ryan. Ryan's back there. Beltmeyer, did I say it right?
Yep,
You did.
there you go.
You did.
You're getting there.
I'm killing it today. Killing it. And yeah, I'm shout out just for helping keep my head on today because it was a busy day getting all the things together, but we got all the things together. So that is that. And love to Common Good Solutions for letting us do our thing in such a
Good
beautiful
I
space.
was gonna say their space is amazing. I love coming
I'm
up here.
glad you guys love it.
I love it.
You can say it again if you want.
Common Good Solution space is amazing. I love it up here.
You know what though?
Yeah.
I do. I really do. It's
Go.
great.
I actually want to apologize
Uh-oh.
to Nivi, Ryan, and I think Cavell. You were in the group, and give you a shout out, Terrence.
Okay.
Because you guys reached out to me initially, and I just was in a weird space and couldn't deal with this.
The logistics.
Well, no,
I had to pass it on to Terrence. Terrence took it over, and
This has been hold on. There we go. This has been it took a while to make this happen.
yeah.
We were gonna do it before the $10 bill actually came out. And then it was too rushed. We didn't have enough time. And then we were like, okay, we'll do it after. And then life is as life often is.
It happens.
And
Life
then-
happens.
It's supposed to.
Yeah.
And then so we said, all right, whatever. We just figure it out. We made it happen. We're here today. It's beautiful. So
Exactly.
that's that. So we're here. We're here to talk a little bit of Viola Desmond. We're here to talk a little bit.
You keep touching that, and you keep.
Oh, is it? Hold on.
There it is.
Oh no, there we go. I'm not gonna touch it, but I like touching it.
I know.
Sorry.
Only at certain times.
Hey. Okay. Thanks, Lo.
Keep it alone. Yeah.
Privacy.
So-
Dwayne. Don't start. Grumpy old man over here. Just drink your water. Why don't you?
Settle down.
So we're here to talk Viola Desmond. We're here to talk black creativity or colored creativity. And can I say that?
I thought you said this was a safe space and you just be yourself.
Okay, so creative people of color.
Great.
I like.
But you know what though?
Uh-oh.
My wife's grandmother is 91. She prefers the term, and she's black, and she prefers colored. She's like, I don't understand why you guys want to call it black, because she came from that generation where the transition.
Right.
And I'm like, we're
interesting.
like, nah, you just, that don't work.
No, don't call
Can't do that.
colored folks. Well, look at me using
Yeah.
old ass words I shouldn't be using.
The one thing I can think about is that Dave Chappelle skit. Yeah.
Which one?
The one, and you guys got the nerve
Collards.
to call me colors.
For those of you who don't know about Dave Chappelle, do your Googles. Do your Googles. Yeah, be careful over there, Dwayne. So we're talking Viola Desmond. We're talking creativity of people of color. We're talking North End Halifax. We're talking impact. We're talking about what we can do and create here in the North End of Halifax.
Past, present, future.
You said it. So maybe let's talk. Maybe let's start with Viola and the $10 bill, because that's a big fucking deal.
It's a huge deal.
To you, why is it a huge deal?
Well, it's nice to see somebody of color reflected on a bill, and she took on such an amazing role in being an activist for Canada, and also Rosa Parks did her stuff 9 years after her, right? So if you really think about it, she started the kind of civil rights activist movement.
Right.
With such a small, what she thought was small, but she sparked so much fire in the community and rallying together, and the togetherness in the community is what I'm all about. So I just think that she's a perfect person for the bill.
Well said. Low.
And she's from the North End, sorry. I had to throw that in there. She's born and raised in the North End, so there you go.
That's the whole reason why we're doing it here, right? Born and raised in the North End of Halifax.
Born and raised.
Where at exactly? Do you know?
I guess they lived on Gottingen Street at one point, and so she did, when she started to run her own businesses, she brought her business back to Gottingen Street, which is really important.
Okay.
So, yeah,
nice.
Big deal.
Nice, you said it. Lauren.
I think in my mind, it's a critical moment in time because the actions that happened so many decades ago have really spurred on what has happened over the last number of years.
Right.
And to be the first, to be a woman, to be a woman of color, to be a woman of color in this community, to be a woman of color in this community as an entrepreneur, all of those things do not tend to exist together.
Yep, you're right.
We take it, I think, a little bit for granted today that we have the ability to do those things, but she was a pioneer. Like, we wouldn't be sitting here in this building. I wouldn't be maybe the face of a couple businesses or leading a couple businesses. I wouldn't, so I think it's a huge nod and an acknowledgement of the shift in culture that we need to acknowledge as Canadians. It hasn't always been
preach, low, preach,
green and, green grass and all those kinds of things. It hasn't always been comfortable, but I think we as Canadians like to think that we are open and we can create a very diverse culture that is a nod to many, many cultures, and that be okay. So I think putting her on a $10 bill, something that's going to be in circulation for, years to come, is just the first of many steps we need to take to start representing and acknowledging the other roots that are here and the voices that have helped create positive change in our country.
And I think it sparks the conversation. You know what I mean? Like, just her being on a bill, everybody's talking about it.
Right.
And so you have very necessary conversations to start saying, okay, this happened. What else can we make happen as a community, as a black woman? What can I do? What can I do? There's nothing I can't do, right? So,
Cavell, how do you
magic? If I can add to that, just I think you guys hit the nail on the head, but it's also super, super important to understand like the systemic change that has happened over so long to come from like that historical moment where she wasn't able to sit in her spot, and now to see the government taking the acknowledgement and trying to make the reconciliation for that, I think there just needs to be something said about it.
For sure. Dwayne, how you feel about it?
I think obviously it's amazing, but I think there's another layer to it too. Like, she was not just a badass as an activist, but a badass in that she was a woman who was engaged in business and entrepreneurship back in that day. And she was a creative entrepreneur, which is my people's. So I double fuck. Sorry.
Come on.
You know how it is. The F's come out when I'm on the mic. I mess with her doubly. I just, from my understanding, is that she saw a hole in the market that women of color weren't being served in the beauty industry, and she decided to address that with her business. And that's kind of what she did. So I think that's like another thing for her that we should celebrate and acknowledge.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback that point of it being a business entrepreneurship, and especially from the creative side. Yeah. Like, we talk so much about representation and being able to see people that look like us, that we can identify with, that are doing things that we maybe aspire to do or to be like. And so if you don't see it, how will you ever believe that it's possible? And so it's crazy to think that like this person that's such a powerful, impactful person in Canada and in the world and this community specifically, like this person is from down the street.
Right? literally like, down the street. Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure that, her relatives since then still live in this community.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is, we've had a lot of issues, gentrification here in the North End of Halifax.
Talk about that.
And, when Common Good Solutions moved into this space, understanding how how historically significant it is. I mean, Rocky Jones's law practice was in this building. The daycare downstairs has been in this space for more than 50 years.
I went to this daycare.
See, like everybody that I know, but everyone that I know
daycare at a point in time,
went to this daycare. It is an institution, right? So, but what we're not really seeing in the North End of Halifax right now, I'll say from a storefront perspective, are a number of Black-owned businesses.
Okay.
When this was predominantly Black-owned businesses, you know, back in the days of Africville, very self-sufficient community. And all of that was stripped away. And now what we're seeing are a lot of white-owned businesses in the North End of Halifax. There are not a lot of Black-owned businesses or immigrant-owned businesses, at least as storefronts. But that's something you can see. You don't know if someone's an entrepreneur in the background, like Dwayne, who does not have a storefront. You're in stores, but it's not. You don't have an Art Pays Me storefront. You're a Black-owned business, but most of them around here, you walk in and you see white faces. And a lot of the friends that I'm making in this community, there are issues and barriers to feeling like you're welcome in those businesses at sometimes. And that might not be malicious, and you know, I'd love everyone else's opinion, but what does that comfortability look like? I think that, you know, seeing Viola Desmond's face on the $10 bill, and maybe that will re-inspire some of that in the North End. You know, let's have some Black-owned businesses and have storefronts so we can start to see a more representative mosaic of the cultures that are here.
I feel like before that happens, we need to have like you said, we need to have the awareness, and we need to create that infrastructure so that people who are feeling entrepreneurial, people who do want to create, they want to fill a niche or they want to fill a void. Yes, they have those ideas, but who can help incubate them? How do we get them to the point to create those storefronts?
Love it. Aren't we in an appropriate space?
But I also think that people from the community need to get into spaces that can make the change, right? And
what do you mean by that?
I work with the North End Business Association, and so we deal with a lot of the businesses along Gottingen and Agricola Street, which we've already pointed out that they are mainly white businesses that are along the street. Me getting into the business association has been working really, really hard to say, okay, we know there aren't enough Black-owned businesses. How do we go about making this happen? I have the connections in the neighborhood with people that they might not necessarily know, but because I'm working there, I can make those connections a little easier with community and business. And I think that's really, really important, right? So, you know,
having a bridge is incredibly important.
It's important. It's really, really important.
So are you the plug for low rent for businesses?
No, we don't do anything for rent. I wish we did, man. I wish I could help you.
So what are some of the things that you do?
So my role is events coordinator at the association. So I try to do a lot of community focused events, trying to, you know, bring some of the people from the community into spaces where they can make connections, meet people, and keep bringing stuff to the community. So people will come here and see, you know, we can work amongst business and, you know, people who live here. I've lived here almost all my life. So it's like, I'm really passionate about making some change and really making stuff happen. So, and
you were part of the Viola Desmond celebration, correct?
Yeah. So I was the lead coordinator of the Viola Desmond celebration.
So talk about that, the importance of that. What happened during the celebration for those who maybe don't know?
So the celebration, first off, we started a committee in December of 2017. So that's when we really started to work and talk about what we would like to see, knowing that we kind of had the heads up that was happening. So we gathered some business owners, some community members, and just people in different organizations. And I loved having the different organizations. Love was involved at some of the point. We had Delmore Buddy Day Learning Institute and Black Business Initiative. And we had all of these great businesses and organizations come together and say, okay, how can we focus on making this a main goal and making this prosperous for the community and really showing the community in the creative way that it is, because the North End is full of creatives, as we all know,
Of course.
So we decided that Viola should be represented within the events that we were going to plan. So it was 5 days of events. So we did a roundtable discussion on civil rights then and now. We had Augie Jones sit on the panel. We had Rodney Diverlis from Black Lives Matter Toronto. And that was a great panel. And then the Thursday we did the Viola the Musical.
Okay,
So,
wow.
Tara Taylor, she created that.
Yes.
Tara,
okay.
shout out to Tara.
Yeah.
And so that happened at Spatz Theater. So the Thursday
Citadel
was,
High, right?
Yeah, Citadel High, exactly. We had 500 people show up too.
Oh, wow.
So it was huge. We had 500 people show up, so it was amazing. Friday we had spoken word, and so that was around activism and civil rights and what Viola means to them and their interpretations, and that was on the local. Saturday we did the tribute concert. Shout out to Caleb Borden, who was sitting in the audience over there.
Yeah.
So that was working with Music Nova Scotia and creating a tribute concert to show all of her different creative aspects. Her husband was a barber. I didn't know that.
Wow.
So we had a barber component. We had live barbers there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had live barbers. We had a fashion show. So we had some local brand setters come in and show some stuff off. And then we had Cindy Kane headline and Roxy and the Underground Soul Sound, who was amazing. And she headlined for Shaka Khan this year.
She did.
Wow.
So she's a big deal, right? Yeah. So that was amazing. And then Sunday, we ended with a Sunday church service.
Okay.
Viola was Baptist and Anglican at one point, and so we had both the Baptist and the Anglican church come together to create one service. So
amazing.
that's huge, right? Like,
So how many people between those 5 days events do you think turned out? Like if you had to just guess.
I'd say it's tough. I'd say about 5,000 people.
Amazing.
It was really, really amazing. And like I said, the committee they held me down through the process, you know?
What is it? Sorry, go ahead.
No.
What does it mean to be a part of something like that and creating something that was able to bring that many people together?
Like I said, I'm passionate about I want the community to really work together. I feel like that's a piece that we've lost over time with all of the struggle. And I feel like, strong community means that you really build and you can bring people together. So for me, it was seeing all of these organizations that work across the street or down the street really make those connections and say, this is what we have going on in our office. How can we maybe look to the future and build something to make it prosperous for people who live in the area? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was amazing. It was amazing. It was an amazing time. We did some amazing work. And so in the new year, we're looking to do like a permanent Viola legacy piece. So
Awesome.
we're going to start talking about that hopefully sometime maybe towards the end of January and seeing where we can go with that and push on the mayor a little bit. Hopefully, Mr. Mayor Savage, if you hear me, I'm coming for you.
He needs to be listening.
If I can just add in really quick, we mentioned some of the performers at the Viola Tribute Show. And I just want to say we're talking about arts and entrepreneurship. And so I just want to give some shine to Jaden Austin.
Oh my gosh.
Who else was there? There was Shay Pitts. There were a few others, but they're the up and coming generation.
So they're young.
Love
So
it.
they're young and they're really out and they're working their artistry. So it's great to kind of give them some stage presence and some time in that, just to say, like there are all kinds of creatives and young and old and everybody kind of collaborated on the event. It was amazing. I can't even,
I have a question just to piggyback on what you just said about losing the togetherness of community. What do you think, what is happening that's dividing community? And kind of and even a second piece to that is what is specifically happening within arts and culture and within that community that's dividing people from working together?
That's
a heavy question.
That's a heavy.
Well, I guess it's for everyone.
No, it's a good one though.
I'm mind blown at this question. I'm trying to get it together.
It's okay. Sometimes it takes just a second to process.
Yeah.
No rush.
Well, the community, like we said, it used to be predominantly Black, and so all the families were very well known, and everybody knew each other. There was like a knowingness of, Mr. So-and-so shop is up the street, and I can go get my hair done there.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of families have moved on and moved out of the city, so sometimes that's really hard. Or elders pass. I've had a lot of elders from the community that were predominant elders and activists in the community, and really focused on that. I'm gonna be that voice for the community. We're losing that, and so it's up to the younger generation to kind of step in there and get in there and make these connections. And that's where I said earlier, it's really important for us to get in these spaces to evoke that change, right? we're not at the table, we can't give anything. Right?
Cavell, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say that I feel like right now there are a lot of niche communities within the North End, and so with that, there's a lot of disconnect just because people don't understand where there's common ground. So if we can collaborate more and offer those spaces, those hubs like Common Good, so that people can connect, they can create projects so that they can actually make sure that they're seen in the communities, and I feel like that would be super dope.
I agree. That was a great point.
Dwayne, what's it like even to piggyback on the creatives working together, maybe not so much working together? What was it like being at the art school and like even moving forward and seeing how these people are either working together or not at all? Like, what's that like?
That's another good question, actually. Okay, so interestingly enough, like I'm from Bermuda, so my whole thing I was objective about this area, but people that I lived with in my dorm told me to stay away from the North End. And then I was like, well, why? Like, it was scary and bad things happen and blah, blah, blah. But then interestingly enough, I went to NASCAD and I'd go down Gottingen and I'd see a lot of like hipster art students on Gottingen. So I was like, this is what's scary. I don't really know. And then as I spent more time there, I started to meet more like people of color within the community. But as far as like NASCAD having a connection there wasn't any. But I have to give props to one of my design teachers who used to try to connect me with Henry Bishop on the Black Cultural Center quite a bit. And at the time, I didn't care about any of that stuff. And I never really took him up on it. And I regret that. But yeah, as far as like North End connection, no, there's never any mention of the North End or anything like that. So
I hate that stigma.
Which stigma?
That the North End is a bad place to go.
But where does that come from?
I think, oh my gosh. I grew up in Uniacke Square.
Okay.
And so, I mean, there was a period of time where you'd hear about some violence, but it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
I just feel like the North End was an easy target to place all of the problems in one area, all of the blame in one area, and focus on this area of the city.
Right.
And, we don't go there because these types of people hang in this situation. Or, it's just a stereotype, stigma type of stuff.
Right.
So I hate that.
And Lauren,
thank you for bringing that up. That was great.
Yeah.
Lauren, what's your experience been like? Just because Common Good Solutions has newly just kind of plopped itself here, and there's a lot of entrepreneurship and creativity and things happening within this space. So kind of what have you seen like in terms of how people are divided, and then kind of looking at it from your CGS lens, being like, ooh, problems to be solved. How do we go about this?
Baggage. There's a lot of baggage around those kinds of questions, and that's totally fine. But I'd say, as Common Good Solutions, when we came into this community, we did not want to pretend to be something that we weren't. And we're still, I think, because we've only been here since the start of April, we haven't even been here a year, just trying to gently find out where we can kind of settle in. We didn't want to come in like guns ablaze, and we wanted to be respectful, understanding that a lot of the members of this community have been here for decades and decades and generations and generations. And we more so want to be a support to any of the awesome action that's going to happen. It's why we kind of opened our doors, why we're working on making our space more accessible. We kind of want to be a hub where lots of people that are trying to create good change will be. But what I've seen, and it's kind of what I've observed, I'm not of this community, and I'm just starting to kind of find my way into it. There's just a heaviness. I think there's trauma that's being dealt with in certain communities to, a certain respect. I mean, I'm sure that again, I'm not in these families, but if you have a lineage that dated back to Africville when people were displaced, there's still probably trauma there that you're working through. And, similar with Indigenous communities that are trying to deal with the residential school trauma. Like there are there's just a lot of heaviness and baggage associated with those things, like trying to unpack those things. And I think we're just trying to be very cognizant how we come into those conversations and ensure that we're coming from a place of observation and support versus telling or pretending to know when we don't know. But what I see is an incredibly vibrant, youthful scene in the North End.
Right.
The number of young potential entrepreneurs that come through this door, and most of them are people of color, it's just, they're amazing. I mean, Josh Creighton, he's in the back here somewhere, and he's supporting this hub space, and he works with the Common Good Solutions team. He's amazing. Kid's only 21. And, you know, over the summer, he was coaching 16, 17-year-olds on how to start a business, a social enterprise. Like, that's kind of how we're trying to have a positive effect, is sort of like a trickle down of education and common language, or these kinds of, you know, exposure to opportunity. And so what I see is just a hunger for knowledge. And I think it's really exciting. I see really creative kids that think about things differently, that have different life experiences, that know that there are some tough social problems, and they want to help. They all want to help. There's not a ton of, at least that comes through our doors, like a lot of apathy or woe is me. There's like, okay, where are we going from here?
Right.
Yeah.
And how can we do this together? I see a lot of collaboration.
That's where I'm at. I just want to, I want to see where can we go? We've had these conversations before, but like, I'm ready to make a move on this, right? My family is from Africa. Like, our name is on the stone down there. So that's super heavy for
What's
me,
your last name?
Paris.
Yes, sorry. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So I'm not about I'm going to complain about this.
Right.
It's happened. We're here now. Where do we go?
And I think that's a good point, because it's often a lot of having the same conversation over and over and over.
And the
I love
conversation
talking.
is so important. It is relevant, but at this point, I don't want to talk anymore. I want to figure, where are we gonna go?
Yeah.
Where can I move this?
What can we do?
What can I change?
Yeah.
I'm here now. I'm young. I'm able. What am I gonna do for the next generation?
Right.
What am I gonna leave you with?
Can I piggyback on that? So I heard a similar topic come up on a podcast I was listening to the other day, and I agree with the point that they were making, and it's that we can be both what you're saying, but we can also be both the opposite. So in terms of, there are some people who don't want to hear the complaining at all, and they feel like we're just making excuses.
And that's not right.
Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And then there's another sector that says, well, all these bad things happen to us, so there's nothing we can do. Woe is me. Yeah. I don't think that that's the way to be either. I think there's
the balance.
There's a balance, right?
Right.
That kind of reminds me of a quote from, what was it? It was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's essentially just like, if I'm the problem and you're the problem, let's stop fighting about that. And let's both agree that we are working towards the same thing. Yeah. And let's actually find that, instead of throwing these negative boomerangs and getting nowhere, you know?
Yeah.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of this, is we're figuring out ways. That's what CGS is. Like, hey, we got a problem. How do we fix it? Here's some strategies and some things you can do to actually put this idea and these plans and these conversations into action. So I think that's great. I have a question I want to ask. It's on my list, but I have to preface this question with another question, because I feel like the definition is different for all people. So the question is, what does it mean to be a Black entrepreneur in the North End? But I guess my question would be, like, what is the definition of Black? And like, what does Blackness mean? Because, and another like deep one, I know, but I think
I know where you're going with that.
But I think, especially when it comes to creative people, and some of the things that may not be seen or typically recognized as cool, maybe some of the things that Black people obviously are some of the things that Black people are interested in, but that's not seen as Black. That's white people shit, or that's whatever, right? So it's, what is the...
You just opened a can of worms.
Yeah.
But I think that's important, because there's youth who are seeing a definition of Black as tough, hard, and it's not that. So I guess the first question would be, is defining what Blackness is before we can define ourselves as Black entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs of color.
I don't know if I can define what Blackness is.
Well, what is Blackness to you?
I just, out of what you were saying, it sparked a thought.
Okay, go.
So when I was growing up, and I told you I grew up in Uniacke Square, and Dwayne had pointed out that there was that kind of stigma of the area. So I grew up in Uniacke Square, and I know my mom, I went to school, I had to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
I had to work twice as hard. I had to make sure I articulated myself very well. Mm-hmm. So I would often go through school or meet people, and they'd say, oh, where are you from? And I'd say, oh, I'm from Uniacke Square. And their faces would just like scrunch up. Well, you don't seem like you're from there. And it's like, I can't be educated and, well articulated without having some sort of stigma about where I come from. That's where I come from. So it's, anyway, but that was my thought. I just kind of wanted to bring that up because it happens all the time. And it's goes into the blackness.
If I can piggyback on that, I feel like there's something to be said about biracial people as well, because identifying as a biracial person, you're kind of in limbo where you're not black enough to be black, but you're not white enough to be white. You know what I mean? So then you don't really have your place, and so you might get some shine, but the only way that you can actually make sure that you're taken seriously is to speak as what people might call just professionally and like over articulating yourself. But when you use ebonics, when you use slang, then your respect level just goes straight down.
Dwayne,
how do I define blackness?
Yeah, to you.
There is no such thing.
I thought the same. I was really racking my mind. I'm like, I don't even know where I could touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
Yeah, I'm done with that definition.
I agree.
It don't exist for me.
Why?
Because look at me, man. Nobody can tell me I'm not black enough.
Yeah.
Fuck you. I'm a dark-skinned motherfucker. I'm black. Ain't nobody telling me I'm not black. It don't exist. It's a concept.
Well, I also think, and I am not black, but when you say that, what you're assuming is that every person with, every black person has the
to be
same
this one way
thing. You all talk this way, you all dress this way, you all have this job, you all behave in this manner, which is just complete cockamamie bullshit. Mm-hmm. And you could say that for we're people, as you say, Terrence, we are humans.
Right.
Go low.
Stop trying to put me in this tiny little box. And I am in a weird box when it comes to the color thing, because I look indigenous and I'm not. And everyone assumes that I am. Yeah. And I think a lot of people haven't fucked with me because I do look like I'm indigenous, because when you're from Truro, there's a certain connotation around being from Millbrook too. But I'm not from Millbrook, and I'm not indigenous, and not that I would mind being, but it just, do you know what I mean? So yes, the biracial thing gets into be a weird conversation. It actually came up yesterday. We hosted Common Good Solutions was doing an event around pathways to employment for people coming out of incarceration. And we were down at the Delmore Buddy Day Learning Institute yesterday. If you haven't been down to that space, go down to that space. I was just like, the whole time. African symbols, black, gold, amazing. White, like clean as, oh my goodness, you gotta go down there. We were talking
about that before we started the podcast with Cavell and Ryan Feltmere, and Ryan was saying people said that that's the Wakanda of Halifax. I was like, yes, Ryan.
That is awesome.
CTN connection, I designed the logo.
Did you?
Cavell is an amazing designer. He did a lot of the images for Viola as well, so for the celebration. But anyway, Cavell is great at design. Stuff is beautiful, but the place is beautiful. You have to go. I agree. Well,
definitely.
So since we're all struggling with the concept of blackness,
because it doesn't exist, it's a construct.
Okay, so in terms of representation, then, and people seeing someone that they can identify with in terms of color. So then, okay, fine. What does it mean to be a person of color running a business or operating in the North End of Halifax? Because like you said, it's a lot of the businesses you're walking down Goddard Street are white owned. Mm-hmm. So it's not just about being black. It is about kind of being other. So what does that mean?
It's heavy.
So for me, it's people naturally gravitate to what we had this in our group chat. People kind of naturally gravitate to what they're comfortable with and who they relate to. So when they see someone like me, if they don't, feel comfortable with someone that looks like me, then their unconscious bias may kick in. And you may be more likely to hire someone who is culturally more like you. I think I ran into this when I was applying for graphic design jobs, if I'm keeping 100, because you don't see too many black graphic designers in agencies. And when people talk about cultural fit, the dude who's got hip hop stuff in his portfolio, and you're coming to work for an agency that does like milk campaigns or something, there is a disconnect there, and they're not even willing to make that leap to see that you could potentially apply those same skills in different ways. And I feel like maybe that connects across businesses in a lot of different ways. People just naturally gravitate to who they feel comfortable with, and then it perpetuates and continues. But we need to break that cycle and that's why I say like the definition of blackness doesn't exist to me anymore, and I say anymore because it did at one point, because we are so wide. As being a black person from Bermuda, like it means a completely different thing than a black Scotian. It's a completely different thing depending on what part of Bermuda you grow up in. Bermuda is 21 square miles. So, it's hard for me to say what blackness is when I don't even know, I can't even describe it. And I just think the world needs to wake the fuck up, basically. And when I say like be unapologetic, I mean be unapologetic, be present, be who you are, and show people that blackness does come in different things. Blackness can be this, it can be that, it can be whatever. Whiteness can be this. We accept whiteness as many things. We don't accept Asians. We need to just keep being ourselves, our authentic selves at all times as much as possible. Be present, be represented. And the more that we are represented and shown, the more people can accept that we are human. Basically, we're just trying to be human.
Yeah.
Cavell, how do you feel about what it means even to be, like you said, the biracial, I don't want to say struggle, but the biracial experience is different, and it can come in so many different ways. So as somebody you're part of Artpreneur, so your goal is to create business and use art in order to do so. So what does it mean to you being in the North End and creating what it is that your goals are set to be?
So right now I'm the program coordinator for a program called Artpreneurs, which is actually run out of this space.
Yes, it is.
But Youth Art Connection, just a little bit of a rundown. Our tagline is make art, make money, make change. So essentially empowers young people with the skills to make art, and then teach them those business skills so that they can take that and make money, and then they can make change with that money that they make. So when we teach them the fundamental business skills to take their art and then put that out there and to brand themselves and to promote themselves, it's more of empowering a generation. It's more of a movement, and just it's showing people that we are all similar. We all have similar goals, and we all want to get to a specific place, but we have different means, and we have different vehicles to get there. I just started rambling a bit. But
no, it's great. It's great.
Good.
Marika.
Cavell.
Yes. How do you feel about the Youth Art Connection and the Artpreneurs program?
I think Youth Art Connection is doing a great job at trying to touch many different creative, artistic ways on how you can make money, how you can be your own business. So I think it's a really important program, and it creates a safe space for people who feel that they don't have all of the pieces to create that business, but it's a great place to go and say, you know what, this is what I have. What do you think I should do? What are my next steps? And for most people, I think they struggle with that, and, figuring out where they need to go and who's going to help them, get there. So I think it's great.
Whoa. I'm curious how you feel about this, because you're all lady power, but it's also lady power of color.
And you're everywhere. You're doing all the things.
I'm trying to do some of the things. Yeah. Can you just restate the question?
So in terms of being a entrepreneur of color, operating here in the North End, what is that like? What does that mean to you? Specifically, I would say like working within Common Good Solutions and like working within that machine, but also building your own business kind of outside of that. And if there's any different, does it feel different?
Interesting question. So I'd say within Common Good Solutions, we want to bring more diverse perspectives and more diversity onto our team, which we have, but we still have, mostly white faces on our team. So I think in-house, I serve as a bit of a bridge, or, I'm representing part of that different perspective, and all of my colleagues bring wonderful perspective. And I think, as well as I do, our team is kind of an incredible group of people. But outside of my business, outside of Common Good Solutions and into Placemaking 4G with that recruitment firm, with Bradley and Thompson and I all coming together to try and attract and retain more amazing talent in Atlantic Canada, there's a reason that we had the founding team with predominantly non-white ownership. And Thompson's French, and so he's white, but that is a different thing, because we're trying to go into employers and we build diversity and inclusivity into our business model there. So most recruitment firms are predominantly white, and they bring in mostly white faces. And now that there's kind of like hoopla around diversity and inclusion, now all of a sudden, if you go to any other recruiter's website, there's like a page about diversity, and I'm like, fuck that. Look at our founders. Yeah. Okay. Look at our founders. Yeah.
The proof
every time exactly is in the foundation.
Exactly.
And so I think in my mind, when we're representing the North End, it's really just showing that there are more access points. I think at some point we should have Rodney on the show to talk about the history of the North End and some of the research that he and his team with the One have done, the One North End project, where a lot of the issues that are happening around gentrification are not actually race issues, they're class issues. There was a particular meeting that he spoke of that really hit home for him, where it became that piece where it's like, this isn't just about race, about being black versus being white. It's about having and not having. Yeah. It's about an access issue. Some of the folks that he talked to in one of those meetings are white and have lived in the North End for 60 years and have seen what has happened. And their family and their colleagues and their friends being pushed out due to affordability and not being able to access some of the businesses because of the costs or the type of business. And it just recruits different people. So I think, I'm just trying to represent myself first and foremost in a professional manner, but also trying to promote opportunity, that it can be done differently and that it doesn't have to be this way. And so that's kind of where I've been sitting with it now, and just trying to bring in more collaborators. Like I'm really, 2019 for me is going to be the year of making the tent bigger. Making the tent bigger. Like I'm starting to not really believe in pure competition, like to tear down other people. I think competition is healthy so we can all improve, but I'm really less interested in, who's taking business from here and who's taking business from there. Don't care. Let's work together, make it better. Like what I care about is making all of our communities healthier so everybody has what they need to have. That's what I care about.
Everybody is this big fish in a small pond, but we really need to realize that we're all in the same pond, and we need to work together to make that pond, that ecosystem, the best that it can be,
Get rid of that, blue-green algae bloom that's suffocating shit. Like, get rid of that, clean up the waterways, get some better plants, some cleaner water, and let's all just swim around together. Totally.
Yeah, I dig it. I think for me, it's also important too. And I don't really hide it, courtesy of my branding. Like, here's my giant smiling black face.
Yep.
This is.
Wait, is that
that's what I'm saying. Like, this is me. This is who I am. This is what it is. And so I think
I think it's cool, and I like it for, and Joseph and I have had this, and Josh as well. Like the youth that were here throughout the summer, they watch me working here with a camera, and they would tell me, like, they would ask, like, what does he do here? And he's like, you see what he's doing here. and for, you know, a group of 9 Black youth from the community to see, like, oh, so there's a job that I could have doing something creative that I love down the street.
That's not a doctor, a lawyer of, you know, your norm, your typical job situations. So,
right.
Yeah.
And so,
important.
Especially in understanding that as people of color, as Black people who've lived in a world where we haven't had very much, and so we've just had to figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out.
Which makes us naturally pretty creative people.
Yes.
And if you look at art, and a lot of the people who are at the front of art, they're often people of color.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to continue to show the value of art. I think it's important to show the diversity in employment that can be created from art.
Yeah.
Think about
Well, that's the thing. Like, how many jobs, like, you know, outside of anything to do with color, okay, outside of any of that, or access or whatever, like, anytime young people are up and coming in this world, and the more times that they come through this door, what I get really excited about is showing them that there's an entire world, multiple worlds outside of what you're learning through public school education. That's talking about the doctor, teacher, lawyer bullshit.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, there are thousands of jobs I'm sure still don't even know exist in different industries. So like you said, how many ways can you slice art and make a living out of it? I mean,
it's endless.
It's crazy.
I find that there's a bit, like, that's a big question in Halifax too. There are a lot of resources. There are so many grants that are available to people of color, people just in general with disabilities, but there isn't the awareness and there isn't the outreach for people who do fit in these categories to actually access them and to go for it. Because the Arts Council of Nova Scotia, they had the Arts Equity Initiative, and that actually empowered me. That gave me $12,000 to go to New York to train at Broadway Dance Center for a summer. And that was one of the most transformative experiences in my life. But had I not had somebody in the community who knew about these resources tell me about that so I could look for them, then I wouldn't have known where it was, and I wouldn't have known where to look for it. And then I probably would just be sitting in my room or at some dead-end job, not actually thinking that arts could give me a viable chance at like making change and being myself, you know?
Yeah. I think it's lovely that the province has all these buckets of money, but my God, are they shit at promoting it?
Yeah.
No one knows what this shit is.
And they don't put it in the school system.
God,
you
no.
would think,
No,
you know,
no.
If you had it in a school system and a teacher says, you know what, I see your strengths, would you think about going into this career? School might be a little easier for kids who think they don't like school. You like school when you go to school for something that you're passionate about. You know what I mean?
Marika, yep.
And my family lineage is from Africville, and so, you know, we come from you need something stable so that somebody can't take that away from you. You know what I mean? So I went through school, and it was school, Marika. You always have to go to school. You have to get all these grades, and I did that. I did it. And it wasn't for me. I went to Dal. I got a 10-year scholarship, like paid, and I went there for 2 years, and it wasn't me. My parents were pissed off. My dad didn't talk to me for like a year.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I have to figure this out. I have to take time and figure out what I want to do and what I'm passionate about.
Right.
And then I end up doing events coordinating, and everything just fell in line.
Yeah.
Like, it's a creative job I can make and give other people these opportunities through events.
Right.
So it's important for you to find yourself and figure out, you know, where you feel comfortable with, you know, your craft and your art, and there's money to be made once you do figure out where you're at.
You talked about, I think you just mentioned something about, and Lauren too, even like the promotion of some of this, the ability to do some of the things, like where do we do with that? Like, is it our fault that we can't find it? Is it those who are creating its fault for not creating it and making it accessible? Like how do we bridge that gap? Because if it's there and we're here and we can do it, why are we not doing it? And what steps do we need to take in order to do it?
I feel like we just need to have community conversations. Like there's so many intelligent youth that actually the Michael Jean Foundation, they just came down here a few weeks ago to host this Black Jam session where they were just asking youth, how do you feel about how you're represented in your communities? How can you make that better? They touch on mental health. But some of these kids, they come up with so many interesting things to talk about and have ways to make change. Like they were talking about pregnancy and teaching empathy and understanding of race before you have your child, so that you're coming into that situation, you know how to put that how to instill those values into your children before conception or after conception. But you know what I mean,
right?
But yeah, so there were a bunch of powerful suits in the room that were talking about all these opportunities for funding, but they weren't talking about where to get them. So there are a few people in the audience who they had a question and answer session, and somebody just came out and he was like, "You're talking about this. You're saying come have a conversation with me, but where's the actual tangible place to find these resources?" Rather than just saying, "Okay, yeah, it's there." Like, how do we find it? How do we get that?
Yeah, it's so here's, in Common Good Solutions applies, the government can put out tenders. Like they'll put out tenders and say, we need someone to come in and do this piece of work that the government can't do themselves.
What is a tender?
A tender is, so it's a document, or they'll call it so it's either a tender or a request for proposal. So it's a big document that outlines a piece of work that the government or someone putting out this piece of work would like to have people bid on. So essentially, here's the piece of work. Usually there's a budget attached to it. They say we have
X amount of dollars,
$50,000 to do this piece of work. Give me a proposal, what your company or you as an individual will do, and you can compete.
And the person best suited gets it. Yeah.
The person best suited gets it. And generally that is the case, right?
Yes.
We all know what that means.
Yeah, but it's a competitive process. So if you're not tapped into where they put these tenders or proposals out,
right,
then how do you access them? You're right. And I mean, even as Common Good Solutions, and we're a professional organization, just this year, we're 6 years old just getting on the tender lists. Well, I mean, we've been on them, but cognizantly checking them.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's usually businesses that can apply for these things. So as individuals, I mean, Cavell, Marika, I'd love to know what you guys know, what's out there, for individuals. I know that there are things outside of government. A couple different people that we've worked with, but it's kind of interesting. And I think when we had Kashmir on the episode or on the podcast, like a little while ago, she had mentioned how in Nova Scotia, because we are such a public sector led province, most people are employed by some form of government. Have we become too reliant on that kind of shit too? So that's my other thing is like, oh, there's opportunities for funding. And then everyone is like, well, where are the grants? There should be money for me. Give me money. Instead of just kind of being like, okay, how can we maybe work together with some other people, bring our resources together, and then make something happen?
The as a non-for-profit, the North End Business Association, we have a very small budget, and we do rely heavily on grants or filling out applications to apply for funding through the government. So it gets sticky. With the Viola Desmond celebration, I swear we were this close to canceling it all. So we wouldn't have had anything for Viola in her hometown due to money. I applied for maybe 6 different applications, and we might have got approved for 3. And then we had like a hard month of just sponsorship and asks and going and asking people. Right. And so we would have liked to get more money from the government to produce, the show that we produced. But it was a lot of sponsorship and ask and going to businesses. Where do you have resources? Where can we find money outside of government? And that's really important to figure out where we go besides the government, because if everybody's going for that same piece of pie, it's very small, right? Like it's
exactly. And when you're an individual creative person, it can be a slippery slope, because then if you're used to getting that money, then you just become complacent.
Exactly.
And you're expectant of that money just coming in. And so I feel like when you get into that place, if you're not that hungry go-getter, if you're not constantly seeking different ways to continue to fulfill what you need, then it's hard for you to actually achieve greatness, achieve that black, like, yo, I don't care, I'm just going to do what I need to do kind of mentality, and also get your shit done, you know?
I think that's a really great point, because, do I think government has a role to play in helping these things develop? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I really see them as maybe being the ones to get something that's halfway viable, meaning something that is going to work, and helping that move forward. Like, do I think government should be just like
not
throwing money, like see what sticks?
Right.
Like, I don't think that's practical either. But I think when we get those opportunities, we got to make sure that we really capitalize and utilize those grant dollars to their utmost value, so we can make sure that we're really putting them to good work, because at the end of the day, it's all of our taxpayer money.
Yeah.
Trying to produce better community outcomes. So
You're right.
you just hope that the people that get it are really trying to create
Put it into
change.
the community.
Agreed. Yes, exactly, Marika.
I dig. Dwayne, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think in general we need to do better to have like media, like what we're creating ourselves here, where we can share these kind of things and get them out to people who may not necessarily be tapped into as many of the networks. And for instance, for me, I slipped up because there was something that happened today that was about helping people of diverse cultures get government funding. There was some training for that.
Right.
Completely wrote the wrong time down and missed it. But those kind of things
Are valuable.
yeah. So
Right.
like, how to put together a proposal that the government's actually going to pay attention to, so you can get some funding.
Exactly. And they're very specific. So you can make the slightest mistake
Yep.
and not get accepted.
Right.
So, I mean, having something like that, like I said, is extremely valuable, knowing what they're looking for and key messaging and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
BBI gave me a heads up about that. So like, tapping into those types of organizations is important.
That's where I said earlier, I'm big on, youth getting into these different spaces because,
Right.
we're all pretty close knit in the
Right.
North End for the most part. But if I know, people know King Rick works at North End Business Association, this is the type of work they do. So if I need help in that area,
Right.
I can go over and have a conversation with her.
Yep.
Or, vice versa, Common Good Solutions, or, all of these spaces are very great spaces to have the youth from the North End get involved in, right?
Well, absolutely.
Sharing that knowledge, the community, right?
I mentioned this yesterday when we were down at DB Dally for the corrections event, and we started the day off by talking about how critically important it is to create good relationships.
It is.
We had opened with a land acknowledgement, and in that land acknowledgement, that the Peace and Friendship Treaty was signed as a way to try and engage, like set the tone for how there would be ongoing relationships between nations.
Yeah.
How'd that go? Ain't great. We're working on that now, but that contextually, when you talk about relationship building and good relationships, that's how you build a strong community.
Yeah.
You can't build a strong community on shit relationships.
Yeah.
That's when you start to get, I think, when you start to get violence and when you start to see fragmentation. And if we can try to be a bit of a hub and connect the networks, like CGS, yeah, we're connected to NEBA, but we should probably have a better relationship.
I agree.
I should say
Right.
better.
I agree.
I mean, a deeper relationship.
Yeah.
We don't know each other that well because
I
we're
agree.
new here.
Yeah.
So how can we start to ensure that people in this community know where they can go to find answers, and how do we tap them into that? So,
Yeah.
and make sure that we build strong relationships so people know that we're reliable. That's the bigger
Right.
thing. It's not any
Right.
good if someone says, "Oh yeah, those Common Good Solutions folks, they don't know what the hell is going on around here."
Yeah. Yeah.
You could try and go, but don't bother.
Yeah.
Like, we gotta be reliable and solid in our knowledge and making sure we're welcoming so people feel like they can access it. But if that's the case, I mean, we're gonna be thriving. Because when people are supporting each other in their initiatives,
Yeah,
there's
you
that
get
tit for
ahead,
tat.
Right.
I think I mentioned yesterday when I opened the event, it was, positive relationships or building good relationships to me mean investment in each other's well-being and
Yep.
trust.
Yeah.
And investment.
I was just about to say, yes. Yeah.
How can we do? And you're talking more than financial investment, or are you just specific?
Investment in a person, investment in an organization it goes a long way, right? Like just getting involved with those people who work there and knowing the space and knowing them, and like I said, knowing what they can do and knowing what you can do and how you can collaborate on creating something else for somebody else to get on board. You know what I mean? So
right.
I agree. I agree.
Speaking of getting people involved, we've got a few more questions that I want to pose to us, but there's also a sixth microphone over there. So if there's anybody who, as we pose this question, maybe wants to chime in, or if you have a question and you'd like to come and pose it to the group, like it's there. So I'm not going to tell anybody to get up again. It's there, so just come in.
There's your invitation.
Come and sit and join us if you would like. So the question I have is, how can we support? The initial question was how can the Black community support each other in supporting Black art and innovation? But
Great
Lauren,
question.
you made a really good point earlier about it not just being about Black and about color. So I kind of want, and that's not everybody in this room is a person of color, so I don't want to exclude people from this conversation. So we can talk specifically Black, but we can talk specifically people living within the North End, because a lot of the things that are happening within North End are affecting both people of color. Right, they're affecting everybody. So I guess how can the community support each other in supporting art and innovation within the North End?
Show up.
I was just about to say,
You guys took the words out of my mouth. Those were the two words I had. Show up.
Yeah. You have to go. I'm gonna shout somebody else out. Terrell Bishop over there, who shows up to everything. He makes a present. He makes himself known.
I've seen that guy.
He shows up, and when you show up, things spark. You know, conversation gets started. You can take what you've learned and give somebody else some knowledge and bring other people to the table and bring those conversations. So showing up is half the battle. Yeah.
Dwayne, what do you think?
Man, I agree. But then I can't say that because I'm basically being a hypocrite because I can't show up to anything.
I mean, I think it's within everyone's, expectation, like within their own capacity.
Yeah, you can't always show. Like, there's life, right? People have stuff going on.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Make yourself known. Make yourself present. Be supportive. Share somebody's art online. Reshare, repost, show support in some way.
And that there's something to be said about that, but I feel like what creates that feeling of support and solidarity is just being there physically, being there to support somebody if they have a gallery, if you're playing a show. To see that face in the crowd literally just makes you have that relationship. It creates that stronger bond and connection rather than just being like, okay, I'm going to share your event. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I mean, even if it's for a moment, Bradley was here earlier. He had to go to another event, but
he was here.
He showed up.
Yeah.
Even if it was for a moment.
And Bradley even prefaced him coming here with, listen, I do have to leave.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm here. And I told Bradley, I said, the fact that you're here is amazing. The fact that you're telling me that you had to leave shows me you care enough about the fact that I care that you're here.
Yeah.
So I need to let you know that I won't be here the whole time, but I am here. And I think you both make very good points. Like, it is about showing up in person, like you said, Cavell, and being there. But there are, like you said, Marika, there's alternative ways to show that you care about something without physically being there. So I guess it would be finding that balance of the both.
You know what else would really help?
Yeah.
What's that?
Pay people for their fucking art.
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, bro, can I get that guest list, please?
Yeah, but this is my point.
Yeah, that friends and family discount.
But this is my point. If we are friends and family and we are all trying to start businesses, and I think our colleague Marie and I, we went down to the Nook today to have a meeting, and we're just kind of catching up, and we were chatting, and on the walk back, I said, and we have Common Good Solutions as multiple partners across the country, and a lot of us are coming into our maturity as businesses, and I said to her, we need to stop trying to give the friends and family discounts to each other all the time, because all we're doing is devaluing each other's businesses.
Yeah.
We need to pay each other market rates for each other's goods and services so we can start to build each other's businesses, not try to get favors from each other's businesses.
Exactly.
Because that's not real money.
Yeah.
It's not real savings. Like,
You can't.
let's do that. So if you love your best friend's art, or you love someone in your community's art, go buy it if you can afford it. Like, I understand that there are barriers financially, but if you can afford $20 for a ticket to an event and maybe you can't attend, maybe someone else would like access to that event, and you can purchase that ticket to support, and then maybe they get an experience that maybe they wouldn't otherwise have, or maybe they wouldn't spend $20 to go to that thing because they don't know they'd be interested, but really maybe it becomes a new thing for them. So,
and to piggyback on that, like, if you can't necessarily support financially, then find ways to collaborate. So like barter services, like you have teams. Every artist needs a team. So say you don't have graphic design, but you're like a dope rapper. How can you work together with somebody to show that you're there to support them? Can you give them artistic work for their album cover, stuff like that? It doesn't necessarily just have to be like paying for things, you know?
No, totally. Give them a connection.
It's the value.
Give them a connection.
Let's say creating some form of value between your services.
Totally.
Yeah.
And go talk to this person. They might be really interested in your art, or they're opening a new restaurant and they need something.
Yeah.
Could be multiple things.
Right. And I think another thing when we talk about value is also for people to understand what their own value is. Because we often devalue ourselves. We don't recognize how valuable we are. And so, you know what? I'll give you this at a discount because I don't think I'm worth.
I don't think I'm going to sell it or
more than that, right? And so there also has to be that piece of, okay, you know what? I know that this thing that I'm passionate about, this thing that I'm creating, this thing that I'm doing, this is a premium product.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to settle for less than, like, Dwayne, you do stuff that's more expensive than the average person sometimes. Peter as well. Peter will sell $70, $80 hoodies because he's like, listen, I'm going to make a premium product. I'm going to make a solid hoodie that's going to last twice as long than your $40 hoodie. And now look what you're investing in is something that's quality. So I think it does come down to people understanding what their own value is and being able to articulate that, which is a whole other.
Right. But here's the
Imposter
thing.
syndrome is a real thing, yo. Yeah. But I also find that, correct me if I'm wrong, I find that Halifax has this really, really bad, like almost humble to a fault mentality.
We talked about that before.
The Halifax humble is the Halifax stumble.
That's what that football team should be.
Halifax Hurricanes? No, Halifax
Humbles.
You want to get that touchdown? I'm going to let you slide.
Nah, man, that's all you.
That's all you.
You serious? And
Yeah.
The Halifax humble is the Halifax fumble.
I said stumble.
Oh, stumble.
Yeah.
Oh, that word.
Stumble, fumble.
Whichever. No, but really, like when we downplay our greatness or our assets, I mean, everyone does joke that Atlantic Canada is the biggest hidden secret in Canada, and we just hide it from everybody. And I get it, we do, because look how wonderful it is. Yeah. But having some more people here wouldn't hurt, and I wouldn't hurt our
economic
business.
growth.
Yeah, thank you. Wouldn't hurt our economic growth. Wouldn't hurt our community economic development.
Yeah,
all of these things.
But where do you find that starts? Like personally, I think it all comes down to arts and empowering the up and coming generation to put all that effort into putting arts into the up and coming communities, because where there's art, that's the cool place. So Brooklyn's a good example of this, but also the gentrification comes as a byproduct of it. So you can be like, if you have the cool artist up and coming, emerging, like place to be, then that's where the tourists are going to go, because that's a destination.
Yes.
So once that happens, that starts to fuel your economy, and that helps to take your city to different lengths. But
fascinating.
But then that just paves the way for gentrification, and then that's what we're seeing in the North End right now with global.
Get in the spaces, everybody. Get in those organizations. Listen, shout out to Lindell Smith, who's one of our counselors, born and raised in the North End, and he's in such an powerful position of change. And that's where I'm big on young people from the North End getting in those spaces.
Right.
Yeah.
Lauren, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, Cavell, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. I think you had a great point there about art setting a tone for the culture of a place. I didn't think about that before because I'm not an artist. You're right. Art has a huge part to play in placemaking, making a place desirable to be, to feel open and welcome. Moncton did that recently over the summer, last summer. They commissioned, I think, between 8 and 12 murals in places where people normally don't want to have foot traffic. And now there's more foot traffic in those areas because it seems more welcoming.
Yeah.
But I'd say here in the North End, I think someone that's doing an amazing job of giving people opportunity to showcase their art is just down the street, Michelle Strum with Alter Egos.
Shout out to Michelle.
Seriously, I walked in there and I'm so happy to still see it. There's like a black hair exhibit. If you haven't been down there, go check that out. Is Dee Dee did the art?
Dee Dee, she knew. It's
beautiful.
She knew, and that's her business, or our business.
It's beautiful. I mean, there's so many like textures on those things. So essentially, if you've been down there, it's all black hair. So there's like a person painted, but she actually uses like textured pieces to represent the hair. So there's like froze and beads and cornrows and, weaves and all these kinds of things. And it's sort of like this beautiful display of the history and the living culture of black hair. So I mean, to be in a place, and Alter Egos is a very cool place.
Yeah.
And Michelle is a very community oriented, give people opportunity, really believes in African Nova Scotian female entrepreneurship. Like that is totally the group that she wants to support. And I see it all the time down there. It's amazing. So I think if we can have more Michelles of the world bringing that in, I think it keeps North End authentic 100%. And then we're seeing the opportunity and the representation. And so, there are a few places in the North End I think are doing that well. Others, I think, have an opportunity to learn.
I think is a good, Cavell, you hit it in the head. I think for me personally, what I find appealing is a mix. I love New York. I love New York because you get the high end, you get the polished stuff, but you also get that little deli that is weird.
Bodegas.
Yeah, you get a mixture of it all together. Whereas Halifax, I find you got Bears Lake where it's completely impersonal.
Oh,
big box stores.
Yeah. And I hate going out there. The only thing I go out there for is Indian food.
Right.
Occasionally.
What's up?
Oh my gosh,
What Indian food?
There's I can't remember what it's called, but it's
like one
good.
place. Yeah, there's one place.
It's good.
It's very good.
But I find if we could get them both together, like somehow find a way that they're working symbiotically where their mass market brands are next to like the mom and pop, then I think we could see more growth.
Agreed. Do we really need the big box store brands?
No, we don't necessarily, no. However, they are a draw. Because look,
they did put an Amazon right in the middle of some random place in New York. And and it's going to tear apart. And it's going to tear apart the local
scene
because
Amazon sells everything.
Yeah, so that's where the problem is. When those people who are only shopping based on price, those things cannibalize the local businesses. I don't know.
I think art's a very interesting thing, especially when we're talking about price and value, because it can be
so subjective.
So, I'm curious, just in terms of some of the things that artistic people can do. What are some? All right, so tomorrow I want to make the North End Halifax a better place as an artist in living here. What can I do? What would you say some of those things might be?
I feel like community programming is a huge thing. Because if there's money for there's I don't know if I'm allowed to mention this, but there's a grant called Taking It Global, and so you can apply for that. You can't pay yourself, but you can get up to $1,500 to put on community programming as long as it has greater good for the community.
Yes.
So stuff like that. I don't know where I was going, but
taking on a project that's gonna you feel is investing into your community or can show off your community in a creative light that you feel hasn't been touched on. Yeah.
I would also say supporting the organizations that are already doing those things. I think
collaborating.
Totally. I really 2019 for me is relationships. Yes. Also Like, enough with the redundancy. Stop trying to recreate the wheel. Like, go support someone's already doing the thing that you think you need to build that doesn't exist. It probably exists and maybe just needs your support to make it better.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another group in the North End called Wonderneath. They support a lot of arts. They provide a studio space. They provide programming for youth, for people with other barriers. And, you know, the McPhee Creative Learning Center on the Dartmouth side does an amazing job with art and promoting youth entrepreneurship through art and getting them engaged that way. So, you know, those are two, I believe, both nonprofit organizations that could use some more support buying supplies or putting on an event or recruiting new folks to come into their programming. So there is lots of opportunity. We just got to get creative about how we deploy our energy.
Yeah.
Are there any questions in the? Yes. Hop. Nibby.
I have a question for all of you.
Do it.
Amazing.
Okay, so Viola Desmond, the reason why she's on this bill is because of this night in New Glasgow. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about how that was perceived. You know, I know that a lot of her family and her sister Wanda has talked about how little support she had after that night, because she kind of stood for something and there was like a divide in the community. So there was definitely differences in the way that people perceived what she did that night, which was, you know, standing up for herself. So I just wanted to see if one or like any one of you who can share maybe an experience that you've had in your creative life or your creative process where you felt that your environment or people around you may not understand what you're trying to do, what you're trying to create, and maybe just like give young people kind of, like what has your experience been and how did you push through that?
Ooh, I'm going first. I'm going to go first.
Yes.
I was...
Great question, Nibby. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nibby. I was living on Prince Edward Island. And it's a great...
I love PEI, but...
I met a really great person on PEI, so we're not going to hate on PEI.
No.
Let's not hate on PEI.
No one's hating on PEI. All we know is that we all got challenges here in Atlantic Canada.
There's a lot of challenges out there.
So when I was on the island,
people of color,
I found there were a number of challenges for
people of color.
As a person of color.
I've been...
And so I had a healthy food idea in a place where they want to deep fry everything. And I also was a new person who was creating business that was beyond how many units were sold and how much profit was generated. And so I went through a tech incubator because I was me. I was charismatic and personable. And so they said, you don't really fit this program, but we're going to put you in it anyway. And so then I kind of got to see and experience business and was like, ooh, like, I know some stuff. And through the 12 weeks of training, I just was like brainwashed with profits. And I'm an artistic person. So I'm naturally like, as I started making video, I was just doing video for something to do and giving it away for free because I was like, oh, this is fun. I want to learn if I'm even good at this thing. But I enjoyed it and I eventually turned it into a career. But I started to see that people who watched my business work told me my business wasn't going to work. And I was around people who thought that I was on phone with another black gentleman who's a businessman who lives on the island. And I was having a loud, passionate conversation at, where was I? What's the country concert called? Cavendish. I was working at Cavendish, having a like supremely passionate conversation on the phone, and he was like, "Are there people around you? Like, make sure you're not talking too loud around all these white people." And he said that to me. Yeah. And this is a gentleman who is African, who now lives there, and is like super buttoned up, and is like, "I don't want to piss off the white folk because the white folk buy my products." And in my mind, I was like, well, if I can't be me, excuse my French, fuck all these white folks. Because I'm not going to live somewhere that I have to conform to be in this box of what you deem as acceptable and proper and how life is going to be. So I didn't like the business way of thinking. I didn't really enjoy the fake acceptance. Lauren, what do you always say? Atlantic Canada, friendly but not friends?
Yeah, friendly, not friends.
So, I really felt that way. That I was like, man, these people don't get it. I don't understand. I can't stay here. This is not
these are not the right type of people for me to be around.
Yeah.
Cue Comic Solutions. Lauren and Dave were at
Upstreet Brewing,
and they did a presentation on social enterprise, and like I was sitting there listening to them talk about this, and I was like, oh yeah, I need those people. Like
they're my people.
They get it.
Yeah.
And absolutely. And so I think that's one of the challenges, especially being an artistic person, is we kind of silo ourselves off, and we work on our art in our own privacy. So we often aren't collaborating as much as we maybe should be. And so I was like, I can't just be here and be an artist in the closet on this island, and I'll drive myself crazy. I need to be around people who get it. And so that was a year and a half ago?
I was going to say, it was February. Was it February 2016 or 17?
17. So it was almost 2 years ago.
Jeez.
Almost 2 years ago.
That's crazy.
And ever since then, I came back home. I work in a community with people who look like me. I work in a building with people who understand the purpose and the reasons for what it is I'm doing. And if surrounding yourself with the right people is not one of the most transformative things and the most advice I could give to anybody, I don't know what is. Like finding people who get it, so you don't have to explain yourself. It's why a lot of people who date outside of their ethnicity are like, oh, I have to explain all these things to these people who don't understand it. It's like, yeah, when you work with people who get your way of thinking, they get it, right?
P.S. As a side note, that should be part of an episode that we do, is like interracial marriages or relationships.
Oh yeah, we could probably go.
That's a whole other. We should. Yeah.
But finding your likeness, it's just it's so natural for you to be yourself. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And you're your best self though.
When you're yourself.
You are your best self when you're yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else have a?
I got a dip. The bat phone just went off.
Oh, bat phone.
Kids on.
Go, Papa. Good to see you. Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Safe travels. We'll see you soon, big guy. Does anybody have a story? We're almost done here anyway, so it's all good. Anybody else have a story about?
I mean, I had a super similar story to yours, except I was in Newfoundland this summer doing a sales job. So you can imagine how that went.
Yes.
But anyway, it was super similar, where I was just in a place doing sales where I was always greeted with such unpleasantry. And so I just never felt like I could, like, there would be people who'd be like, make like subtle racist jokes. It'd be like, oh, you're chocolate, like you're the chocolate homie, thinking like, yo, it's okay.
It's not fun.
And like, but they're not like socialized to understand that, because they obviously, it's a predominantly white province, you know? But so just similarly to you, I came back to Halifax, and then I started working with Youth Art Connection, and then those people just got me, and I like, this is my place, this is my home, and that created a change and a shift within me, that like, because when I was doing the sales job, I was very just like on autopilot. I wasn't trying to work towards anything tangible. I was just like, okay, let's just get this done. But then when I got here, started working with Youth Art Connection and doing the work, the real work. So with artpreneurs, watching these young entrepreneurs grow, I got this sense of community, and I got this feeling of like a void was filled that I'd never felt before, because everything was kind of superficial and just like fly by the seat of my pants kind of thing, you know? But yeah.
It's crazy when you're you find your people, everything clicks. Just like everything falls in line when you're in the right space, right?
Lauren refers to that as her grandmaster
vision. Well, grandmaster vision is like, you know, the ultimate life plan, business plan, whatever plan.
Yeah.
Grandmaster vision plan.
Yeah. Do you have a story too?
What was the question again? When have I encountered like challenges to things that I'm trying to do?
Nibby, is that correct?
Yeah, so maybe a time where people around you didn't understand your creative process or your work, and how did you kind of work through the challenge of not being understood or your work not being understood?
So I have this like problem where when people tell me I can't do something,
You do it 10 times? You seem like
totally. It's like my favorite. Listen, I'm feeling this over here already. Yeah, totally. I'm feeling the whole show, Marika. But it's like, I never took to that very well. Ever.
It makes you angry.
It's when you challenge me, I just,
Good luck.
I got 2 words for you. Just watch me.
Good
Like
luck.
I love that. It gives me inspiration. I love trying to fly in the face of it. I mean, a lot of the work that I'm doing right now is to try and give Atlantic Canada a different light. I think it's horseshit when people are saying that investing in Atlantic Canada is a bad choice. Like that's a narrative that we're trying to, that I'm actively trying to change, that we're trying to change.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even this podcast, I'm sure that there are people that listen to it and are uncomfortable, and I know we're finding our way in the most effective means, but there's obviously a reason that we're trying to fill a gap that we felt didn't exist. I'm sure there are some people that aren't very pleased with that.
When I say, when I feel uncomfortable, I'm like, change is coming out of that uncomfortable. If you being uncomfortable causes you to make change or go somewhere else, you know what I mean? So I like make people uncomfortable.
Yeah,
That's
get
how
comfortable
you grow.
being uncomfortable.
There you go, right? You can't get stagnant in what you're doing your day to day.
You got a story for us too?
I'm going to take it back to junior high, high. So I said I grew up in the area, which when I was growing up was predominantly a black area. So I went to my elementary school where I see most of black faces and kids like me look like me. And you might have had a few white people in the area, but predominantly black.
Okay.
So the junior high that you moved to next was predominantly white. And so you have a handful of your people of color going into a predominantly white school, and everything shifts.
Yeah.
And you get uncomfortable, and you feel you're feeling these spaces, and some people are feeling uncomfortable. And I remember I've always been if you challenge me, I'm gonna make you regret that you challenged me because I'm gonna do my job so well.
Yeah.
You're gonna not like that you challenged me. Anyway, so I get to the school, and we're all feeling that kind of like, okay, we're trying to fit in, but you don't quite fit in.
Yeah.
We had elections in junior high for presidency. And so presidency, you got to create all these events and these new rules. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that. And they're like, Marika, there's like a handful of us, like, you're not going to do that. I did it. And I was president of the school. And I made my own rules.
Yeah.
You know, I got good in with the teachers, and we figured out how we can collaborate collectively. And that was. So I made them regret, feeling that way towards us. But then people opened up, right? And it's making people uncomfortable causes the change, right? So that's all I needed. They needed somebody to make them feel uncomfortable.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So
Now that Dwayne's back, he's going to share his story with us.
you came back so fast.
Yeah, I know. Wifey asked me to pick up one of the kids, but they're all the way out in Bedford. By the time I get there, they'd be like left alone. So
Gotcha.
it's not
Plan B.
No, she's gonna do it.
Shout out to Wifey for holding it down.
Thank you.
Yeah, big facts.
Yeah. As far as
People not understanding your creative process and maybe holding you back, and you finding ways to overcome the lack of support and understanding in you.
how can I approach this the right way?
I tried to find a story that was like
He about to piss somebody off.
not gonna be super, piss somebody off.
In a light way, when I first said I wanted to go to art school, that was sort of one of those things. But then my parents came around and were like, okay, we see you. and they were supportive ultimately. Generally, it's hard for most people to understand, like in my family anyway, what I'm doing with the business. Some people do, some people don't. But generally, they're like, the spending money part is hard for people to understand because most people see the glamorous side of having a clothing brand, a product-based one particularly, but they don't necessarily understand that there's a lot of time and financial risk involved in it, and that's taxing. And
Yeah, because you're all overhead based.
yeah, so
Inventory.
I'm holding inventory all the time, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I like this one design you did. Can you do it again?" And I'm like, "That means I gotta print this many. How much money is that gonna cost me to
You're losing
get
money.
you one shirt that you say you're gonna buy?" And I've done that before, and then the people don't motherfucking buy it. So it's it's hard to do that, and then you explain to your family, oh yeah, I bought all those T-shirts that nobody bought. It's like,
Yeah.
You got clothes for years to come.
it's a hard thing but they don't necessarily, people don't. When you're in a business like that, you have to have this weird blind optimism, and it makes you look like a crazy person, or like you don't know what you're doing, and then, you know, we watch shows like Dragon's Den or something else, and we think these things just make stuff look so easy. Like the business owners, the entrepreneurs, they just had it all figured out and they made the right choices all the time. Yeah. But the reality is that a lot of them, even in the biggest, highest places, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of them fail a lot. Not everything sells, not everything does well, but people just show you the highlights. And it's like, me, I'm just trying to win enough. And it's hard. It's just hard for people to understand that you just have to have that blind faith in yourself that you could kind of make it work eventually.
Believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself. Believe in the process, I guess.
Yeah.
More so than yourself, even. Yeah.
Interesting. Do we have another question? Do we have any other thoughts back there?
It's like crickets.
Yes, please. State your name on the microphone just so that we know who you are. Thank you. Hello.
So my name's Amanda Rose, and guess I'm coming from a bit of a current events perspective here, but speaking about art and culture, and specifically culture and art that's created by people of color. How do you foresee with the new upcoming positive vote with the link, the new culture center in Halifax, how do you see that playing a role in how that's going to shape the arts and culture community in Halifax, and how specifically it's going to affect, or how, I guess, could it be inclusive for everyone?
Great question.
Alfred and I were talking about Culture Link the other day. Cavell, you got something to say?
No, I was just gonna say shout out to Tara Wilson. Tara Taylor. She's she's on the board, and she's the only person of color in a sea of white dudes. So
getting in those spaces, good. I'm telling you, some change. That way.
What will? I think there's a lot of. And we even kind of struggle with this sometimes too with the podcast. Like, where are we going to record this thing? So I think there being space, like there actually being physical space for people to do some of the stuff that they want to do. I think that's a big deal. And I think, again, like there's an awareness piece. There's a making sure that people in the community who would access these things know about these things, and bridging the gap so that those who need it can use it. And I don't know how we do that. But I feel like the messaging in terms of, here's this thing that's happening. Here's this thing that you're doing. Here's how you take that thing and work it within this system that's being created so that you can be successful. I think however we create that conversation, I think will be huge, because it's about people's, okay, yeah, that's there, and yeah, I can access it, but like, how? We see all these funding applications that are like, they're just like miles and miles long, and it's almost like, I don't even want to bother because it's just too much work. So I feel like if we can figure out some sort of way to make sure that message is, those people who need it and those who have it are sitting down at a table talking and figuring out the best way to make the most of it.
Cool.
I think it's going to be both. I think both sides need to work. So I'm hoping that whoever is involved in this is going to be looking to make more inclusive spaces in there, but we can't rely on that. So I think that people of color who are in the creative spaces have to be our own advocates and really push to make ourselves present and say, we want to be involved. You have to let us be involved, or we will stir some shit up.
So what's interesting about Culture Link is they have a magical little legal structure that they share in common with Common Good Solutions, and they are a community interest company.
CIC, baby.
Yep, and I don't know how much they actually talked about that at the announcement, and they may not have talked about it at all, but CultureLink is now legally mandated because of their legal structure to reinvest 60% of their profits back into their mission, which I believe is to encourage and support the artistic community here in Halifax. So there's a golden opportunity for CultureLink to, with purpose and intention, build relationships with the groups that maybe haven't had access through a number of different modes,
right,
with money that doesn't have strings tied to it because it's theirs.
Right.
Right. So I think there's a golden opportunity there for sure.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, that was awesome. Your name was?
Amanda.
Amanda. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you
for sharing your brain. Is anybody else? Because if not, I'm kicking everybody out of here. That was dope.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was amazing.
That was
I could sit up here and talk
That's
to you
the
guys
beauty
all
of it.
day.
That's the beauty of it, right?
It's just,
That's cool.
Like time went by.
Does anybody have anything last that they want to share before we shut it down?
Can I plug?
Oh, duh.
So the Artpreneurs program that ran out of Common Good, they actually were showcasing a lot of the Artpreneurs, the participants in the program. And so on the 18th next week, there's going to be a pop-up market, an opportunity for you to buy some art from young emerging artists in the community, but also see what they've been working on. So
nice.
If you're down for it, 5:30 to 7:30 at Volta Labs, and you're good to go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. Do it. Anyone else? Other than their plugs?
Nah, no special stuff.
Much love. So, okay, so I just want to thank everybody who's here, everybody in the room. Brielle was here taking pictures. I love him so long. And he came with his CTN hoodie on. So, I mean, what's not to love? Much love to Pyro over there hanging out in the back. Everybody who came, hung out with us, who's listening. We appreciate it. Dwayne, send them off, Papa. Where do they find you at?
Art Pays Me at Art Pays Me everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, artpaysme.com. Hit your boy up. People who want to have coffee and things like that. I'm sorry, I'm just busy lately. My bad. I'm gonna get back to you. There you go.
Such is life. Cavell, you're good.
What's up? Oh yeah, Cavell Holland, Cavell HB, Youth Art Connection, and also Small Fortune Entertainment on Instagram and on Facebook.
Do it. Low.
Cool. You can find me at Common Good for All on, I think, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and then at Placemaking4G on Instagram, Facebook, and p4g.ca.
Boom, boom, boom. Marika.
You can find me at Celebrate Viola on Instagram, Viola's Legacy if you're interested in anything Viola on Facebook, and North End Business Association if you just want to stop by and have a conversation. I'm always there.
Dope. Terrence J. Taylor on Instagram. Terrence Taylor Media. Did I say that right? No. Terrence Taylor.
You just wanted
Media.
to redo it.
I know. And because you interrupted me again, I get to say it one more time. TerrenceTaylorMedia.com. See? We on the same page here. I don't even know how we did that, but we did it.
Yeah.
CTN Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram. Changing the narrative.ca. Is that all of them? Did I get all our plugs out?
I think that's it. That's all.
That's dope. Thank you, everybody, again. Much love to Viola Desmond. Thanks for being badass and all that cool shit. Mm-hmm. We will talk to y'all later.
Yeah.